Hello everyone and welcome back to the Coding Amateur. In our last video, we created a sudo user and we disabled the root user due to its security vulnerability. In this video, we will be installing Directus onto our VPS. To do that, we will need to install Docker and its associated packages and docker-compose. Since we'll be installing Directus within a Docker container, we will need Nginx, which will be our web server. Continuing from a previous video, we will access our VPS through the sudo user that we created. Let's begin configuring our VPS. To do that, we will need to go to Directus docs. So let's head over to the Directus website. Okay, so let's navigate to the Directus docs, and more specifically, we will scroll down. If we scroll down to the bottom of the Directus docs, we will come to the if we scroll right down to the Directus docs, we'll come to the self-hosting guide. We want to click on that. Right, and looking at the self-hosting guide, we will see that there are many things we can go through within this guide. You know, we can look at the compute, the running the Directus instance, the database, the Redis cache, the CDN, load balancers, backup system monitoring. So there is a wealth of information that you can get within this section. We will not be going through all of this within this tutorial. However, I do encourage you to read the documentation. What we will be focusing on would be the documentation that would allow us to install the Directus headless CMS within the Docker container. So we will go to deployment. And the first thing we would want to consider in this part of the documentation is the docker-compose example. This is the file that brings everything together. So you would notice on the file, you would see the information for the database, the cache, and the Directus instance, including the image that we would be using and the ports that we'll be using to access our Directus instance. Okay, now you would see that it says here replace with version. The latest version is 11.6.1. That's the version we are going to use. Okay, and on this docker-compose file, you'll also see the admin email, admin password, replace with your email, replace with your password. So this would be the default user once we install Directus. So in this file, when we copy this file over onto a file within our VPS, we're going to change the email and the password. For the public URL, we will delete this line for now, as it would not be relevant to what we are doing at this point in time. Right, and under environment, we have a secret here, which is our Directus secret. To increase the security of the Directus instance, you can replace it with whatever you want it to be. All right, so we will copy this file and paste it into a file that we would create on our VPS. So let's copy this file. Okay. So within our VPS, we want to create in our home directory a Directus folder. So mkdir Directus, enter. If we use the command ls to show us what is in our home directory, we will see Directus. Let's now go into that folder. So we're going to see d Directus, and we're going to go into that folder, right? So you would see at the command prompt, you see the /Directus. So that means we are in that directory. Okay, so according to our documentation, we're supposed to create a Docker compose file, and that is this file here. We would have copied the contents of this file. We are going to now paste that into a file of the same name in our VPS. So we're going to use sudo, and we're going to go nano, and we're going to create the file. That file, it's not on our system here, but we're going to create it. So it's going to be Directus. No, sorry, it's not Directus. It's going to be docker-compose.yml. Now, once we hit enter, it should prompt us for our password. And that we should have handy if we did not commit it to memory. Well, I did not, so I'm just have to look back at mine, right? Okay, so I entered one of the characters. I may have sort of added an additional character. So let me try this again. All right, and there we are. So we are in nano, and we would have copied the Docker compose example from the Directus docs. We're going to paste it now into our nano file, and there we have it. So I have pasted the Docker example into the Docker file that we are creating here in our VPS within the Directus directory, located within our home directory. So we have a couple of changes here to make. First off, we want to add a Directus image version, and we right where we see replace, just where we see replace with version, we will put in the Docker version we want to use. We are going to use 11.6.1. As of this recording, this is the latest version. Whichever version you choose to use, you could do so. If a later version should come out and you want to use that version, you can feel free to do so. But we are using 11.6.1. Also, we want to replace our secret. All right. So I will replace my secret with something else, and we will also want to replace our email and password with your email and password. I will replace it with mine. And lastly, we want to delete the public URL option. Okay, once you would have completed making these changes, press Ctrl and O, that is to save, and it will ask you if you want to save, and then you hit enter and it should save the file. Then Ctrl X would put you back out to the prompt. So I'm going to make the changes off screen because I don't want to show my secret, neither my username or neither my password. You may see the email, but I don't want to show my password. So I'm going to go off screen, change those, and then I'm going to come back on screen. Okay, so I would have created my docker-compose.yml file off screen. I would have edited my secret, email, and password off screen. So just to confirm, go back to your home prompt and let's check again and see what we have in our home directory. So I am going to use the command ls, and I see there my Directus folder. I'm going to change to that directory, cd and then Directus. And if I use the ls command to see what I have in that folder, you should see your docker-compose.yml file. Now that we have this file, we will install Docker and all of its packages, including Docker Compose. However, to do that, we would have to prepare our VPS. So we will go to the installation guide within the Directus docs. So on the same page that we were earlier, you will scroll up to the top and you will see this link here. See all vendor specific hosting deployment tutorials. We will click that and we will look for our OS, and we see here deploy Directus to an Ubuntu server, and we are using Ubuntu. So let us click that. Okay, and we want to scroll down to the actual installation. All right, so we will start our installation from this section. So the first thing we want to do to our VPS is to update and upgrade. All right, so let's do that. It's going to be sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade -y. Okay, so I will go back to my home directory and I will do sudo apt update. It's going to ask me for my password. Let's hope I get this correct this time. Okay, that's it. It will update. Okay, so I have successfully updated my VPS. Now we will upgrade. So sudo apt upgrade -y. And we will wait for it to complete. If your machine is faster than mine, this should take a shorter time. Once you have finished updating and upgrading your Ubuntu server, you can issue the sudo reboot command. That would reboot the server and we would restart our installation of Docker. Let us now go to the next step. In this next step, we will want to remove any conflicting packages from a previous installation. In my case, I don't have a previous installation on this VPS. It's brand new, but just in case you do, this is what you would run. This is the command that you would run to remove any conflicting packages. So let's copy and let's paste it in. Hit enter. And that's it. We are done. Let's clear. And let's move on to the next step. Get update and installing 3 packages: CA certificates, curl, and gnupg. CA certificates. CA stands for Certificate Authority. And that package, what does it do? It's simply a digital certificate that is used to verify the identity of third parties, and it encrypts the data between you and the said third party, right? Curl refers to both a command line tool and a library for transferring data using URLs, and it supports various protocols like HTTP and HTTPS. And gnupg, that package is responsible for encryption and decryption. Uses public and private keys to encrypt and decrypt data, digital signatures, key management, and secure communication. So those are the 3 packages we are going to install, which is necessary for our Docker installation. So we are going to copy and let's paste that in. All right, and let's hit enter. It's asking for my password. Enter. All right. Okay. So so it's completed. So we did our apt-get update and we installed the 3 packages. Okay, let's clear. And let's move on to the next step. Moving on to our next step, we want to add Docker's gnupg key for package authenticity. So we have sudo install and we have -m0755-d and a directory. -m and -d are flags. Flags are used to provide additional instructions or specify certain options when executing a command. So -m and -d are giving additional instructions to the command to install the particular directory and the file within that directory. What does the -m do? Well, it tells the system to preserve the current environment variables. And -d tests the following directory to see if the name is legit and if it exists. So it tests -d tests the directory that is following. In this case, it's the keyrings directory. Now, the keyrings directory is a store for sensitive data like passwords and cryptographic keys. So we will be creating this store because we want to download the gnupg key from Docker and store it in that directory. We go right along to curl. Now we know what curl does, right? Curl is a tool or library used to transfer data using URLs. So because we want to download the gnupg key from Docker, we're going to use the curl package to handle that for us. Now with the curl package, we see that we have some additional flags, right? -f, lowercase s, uppercase s, and uppercase L. Now you can put some flags directly together. In this case, these flags can function like that. So first, the lowercase f. This option tells curl to exit immediately if the server returns an error response. The lowercase s option makes curl go into silent mode, meaning it won't display progress or error messages. The uppercase s, if used together with the lowercase s, makes curl show an error message if it fails, right? And then we have the uppercase L. It instructs curl to follow HTTP redirects. So that's what this flag does. We are going to chain to this curl command another command, and that's what the pipe symbol, which is this upright line. It's known as a pipe symbol or the pipe. That's what it does. It chains commands together. And we're going to chain another command, and this is the dearmor command. So what does that do? When we download the gnupg key, it's in the ASCII armored format, but we cannot store it in the docker.gnupg file as we would want to. So we have to convert that ASCII armored format back into its binary equivalent. To do that, we run the dearmor command, which is gnupg dearmor. So that converts the ASCII armored key into its binary format, followed by -o. All -o does is outputs the result to the directory we want. In this case, it's going to output it to the etc apt keyring store, and it's going to create for us that docker.gnupg file containing the gnupg key. That's sudo chmod a+r. That is going to give us the permissions we need to consume the gnupg key. So A is for all classes, and that would mean like users, groups, and others. And R is read access. So that gives us the access we need to consume the gnupg key in the keyring store. All right, that's that command in a nutshell. So let's copy that command let's go back to our VPS and let's run that command. Control V, and let's hit enter. I have it already installed, so I'm just going to overwrite, and it is done. Okay. Our next step would be to add Docker repository to package manager sources and update the package manager to recognize a new repository. Now these commands are very complex to break down. It would require a lot of explanation. So I'm not going to attempt to go into these commands in any detail because I think it would kind of take me off of where I want to focus. But one thing I just want to show is that if you look here, you'll see signed by, and you see the keyring store. So this is where the GPG key is stored to authenticate the packages that we would be downloading from Docker. So we see that in action in this file. So this is going to do what it says here: add Docker repository to package manager sources and update the package manager to recognize a new repository. So let us copy that and let's go back to our VPS. Let's clear. Let's paste that and let's install. And it's done. So that's finished. Let's clear and let's go to the next step. We want to install Docker packages including Docker Engine and CLI, Containered, Docker BuildX, and Docker Compose plugin. So these are the packages we will need to install Docker onto our VPS. So once again, let's copy. Let's go to our VPS and let's paste those commands. All right. Do you want to continue? Yes. Right. Of course, if your machine is much faster than mine, your process would be much shorter. And it's done. So let's clear. And let's go back. And we see here, confirm the successful installation of Docker Engine by executing the following command. So let's run hello world and see if we get a success. All right, so you would notice that as you run the hello world test, you would see unable to find image hello world latest locally. So that could put you off, but if you look further, it will see pulling from library hello world. So it pulls it down, and then we get hello from Docker. This message shows that your installation appears to be working correctly. So we have successfully installed Docker. So let's clear and let's move on to the next instruction. So what we want to do is to start up our Directus application. But before we do that, we have to allow incoming traffic on certain ports, which is 22, which is SSH, port 80, which is HTTP, and 443, which is HTTPS. Also, we want to open up port 8055, as that is the port that Directus will be running on. So let's copy this command, which opens up these ports on the firewall within Ubuntu. Let's go yes. Right, firewall is active and enabled on system startup. So not only did we enable the firewall, but we opened up 4 ports on the firewall so that we could get access to our VPS through the firewall. Port 22, which is the SSH port, port 22, and we have port 80 HTTP, 443, which is HTTPS, and 8055, which is the port that Directus listens on. All right. So let's start our Directus application using Docker Compose. So we need to go to the folder where we would have created our docker-compose.yml file. So let's go to that folder. So let's clear. Let's go to our directors folder because we would have created that directors folder within the home directory. Let's hit enter, and we're going to run sudo docker, no hyphen, sorry, compose and up. And let's see. All right. So it is running. So it has to pull down all the information. If you are working on a faster machine, this process would finish much faster than it is taking on my machine. So feel free to jump ahead if you have completed this step. Our Directus instance within the Docker container is running. So we need to test that. Okay, the moment of truth. Let us access the Directus instance. Directus is running on our VPS. Let's see if we can access it using the email address and password we would have put into our docker-compose.yml file. All right, so our Directus backend is up and running. So at the moment we have no collection, so it's telling us to create a collection. So we have achieved what we set out to do in this video, but there's something we can do to take it a step further. What we can do to our Docker container is set it up to run as a background service. Now, why would we want to do that? Let's read the documentation. Running your application using sudo docker compose up will stop it running when you close the terminal. To ensure your application runs in the background and restarts automatically, you can create a systemd service. So what is systemd? Systemd is a system and service manager for Linux operating systems. It provides a standard process for controlling the startup management and monitoring of services and applications. It is usually defined by a configuration file, usually ending with the .service extension. So that is what we will be doing. We will create a systemd service file for our Directus instance, and we will name it directus.service. And this is the directory that we will install it in. The contents of that file we will copy from the Directus docs, which is right in front of us. One thing to note, that your working directory here, this path, it is unique to wherever you would have stored your docker-compose.yml file. So wherever that file is, that is the directory you will put here under working directory. Let's create this file. So first of all, let's copy the directory. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to stop the Directus container. I'm going to stop it by pressing Ctrl+C, and that would stop the container from running, right? And I'm going to clear my screen. Okay, now that the screen is cleared, I'm going to copy the command. I'm going to paste, the command that we copied from the docs. Okay, so now we have the command sudo nano. Nano is our file editor, and the file we are going to create is directus.service, and that's the directory where this file is going to be. So I'm going to hit enter. It's asking me for my password again. Okay, and we are in our nano editor. So what we will do is go back to Directus docs. We will copy the information and we will paste it into our file. So as it is, I have not edited the working directory. I will show you how to figure out your path or the location of your file. Okay, and I'm back into my directors folder. If I hit ls, you will see that there we have some additional files within the directors directory. Most importantly, we have our docker-compose.yml file. Right, so you will see underneath the directors.service file, you will see you can get the full path to your directory by running the command pwd in the project directory on your server and copying the output. So that's what we will do. So we are in the directors directory. So let's go back to cd. All right, so this is my home directory. What I want is the path for the directory that contains the docker-compose.yml file. So that directory is my directors directory. So I'm going to go back into my directors directory. So I'm in that directory. That is the, so I want the path to this directory. So all I'm going to do is type in pwd. And there is the path for my directory. You will copy the path for your directory. Okay, so that is the path for my directory. So what I will do is go back into my directors.service file and edit that path. Okay, so I'm just going to use the up arrow until I come back to that command. Right, that's the command I want. I'm going to go back into that file and I'm going to put in my directory. So I'm going to come down here. Now remember, you do not add the file itself to this path. All you want is the directory to the file, but you don't want to put the exact file into this working directory. So for me, it will be home /code /directors. Now, if you should put another slash and put docker-compose.yml and you save that, it will not work because you have actually put the location, or you are actually pointing to the file itself. But what this document wants, what this file wants, is just the directory where it could find the file itself. So we don't want to do that. So we just want to put the directory where the file exists. And that should be it. Control O, hit enter, and then Control X, and we have completed our directors.yml. So we're going to save. Now you can read through the documentation again, which gives you a breakdown of what this file does. We will not do that. However, we want to enable the directors.service file and we want to start it. So let's copy. We will clear and let us paste. Okay, so we have sudo system control enable directors.service and sudo system control start directors.service. So let's hit enter. Okay, and that is completed. So let's go back to our docs. By executing this command, your Dockerized Directors application will run as a background service. One of the advantages of this setup is that the service will automatically restart in case of failures or system reboots, ensuring continuous availability. Run the following command to check the status of the service. So let's copy again and let's run this command to see if it's up. So I'm going to come out of this directory. I'm going to clear. And I'm going to paste that command. Okay, and now I'm going to hit enter and let's see if the service is up and running. Okay, so if you look at the information, so underneath the command that we just issued, you'll see directus.service. Directus Docker service. We'll see loaded and you'll see loaded. And underneath that, you'll see active and you'll see active running. So it is up. And we have confirmation because we see at the bottom of all the information given, you will see server started at http 0.0.0.0 8055. That confirms that our Directus instance is running, but we did not have to run the docker-compose up command. Our systemd file did that for us automatically. And should our server reboot, it would start back our Directus instance automatically. So with that done, we have a working instance of our Directus headless CMS. Now that we have completed the installation of the Directus headless CMS within our Docker container, we are going to install the web server. Before we install the web server and configure it, we need to have our subdomain configured. Now, you would have to go back to your hosting provider and configure your DNS. If using Namecheap as I am, then you will have to go to the Advanced DNS tab under your domain name, and you would have to set an A record for your subdomain. In my case, I am going to be using CMS as the subdomain. So what that would work out to in my as a subdomain, it would be cms.thecodingamateur.com. That's my subdomain. In Namecheap, all you would have to do is add new record, and you would see a list here. Choose a record and then the host, whatever you want the name to be, and then the IP address of your VPS, and then you save, right? But I already have it configured, so I would not be recreating that record. I'm going to use CMS, and I just created another one adding the www before the CMS. So I created these two A records to use within my web server. So whatever hosting provider you're using, go to that hosting provider, configure an A record for your subdomain. It should have the name that you want to put for the subdomain, the IP address of the VPS, and what type of record it is, which is an A record. Okay, so with that already configured, let's go back to configuring our web server. So to install Nginx on your server, we will copy this command, sudo apt install nginx-y. So let's copy that. And I'm going to paste that in and hit enter. It's going to ask me for my password. Okay, and our installation is complete. I'm going to clear, and we will move on to the next step. We have to create an Nginx configuration file for our web server. So to do that, we are going to open that open a file in our file editor Nano. So let's copy this directory where the file would be created, and we will paste that in. Now, if you look or if you observe in this command, you will see the directory which we are going to install that file in, which is sites available, and the name of that file is going to be Directus. However, I would want to change that to the subdomain of my the subdomain that I would have created, so that whenever I go to that file, I know what subdomain that points to. So I would name this CMS dot the coding amateur .com. Right, I just want to make sure I spell that correctly, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so we have created the file. Now we want to store the contents of the file. So we have here the following configuration, and we're going to replace that, or rather we are going to copy it and paste that into our file. Okay, so we have to make one change, and that is the server name. Now the server name would be your subdomain. So this example is directus.exampledomain.com. I am going to change it to cms.thecodingamateur.com, and you will change it to whatever subdomain you created. Okay, and that's it. That's it. So let's Control O, enter, and Control X to exit. And we have installed Nginx, and we have created a configuration file. Now that we have created an Nginx configuration file, we need to test it for syntax errors. So let's go to our VPS, and we're going to enter sudo nginx -t and hit enter, and we have to put in I would have to put in my password. All right, and we see that the syntax is okay and the test is successful. So our Nginx configuration file has passed the test. All right, so let's clear. And what we want to do now is create a symbolic link. Now, what is a symbolic link? Well, a symbolic link is a file that acts as a pointer to another file or directory, allowing you to access the target file from multiple locations without duplicating the data. So the symbolic link helps streamline user directory mapping for web hosting management. So let's create our symbolic link. We are going to copy this command. Let's paste it in. Of course, we have to change the name of our config file here. So in my case, well, let me rephrase that. I will have to change the name of my file here. I don't know if you guys would have used Directus, but I would have changed mine, and I encourage you all to change it to your subdomain as well. So if you did that, you have to make the change here as well. All right. Okay, now with that, let's hit enter, and it should create the symbolic link. All right. That's it. Now we'll have to restart the Nginx web server. So let's copy the command here, sudo system control restart Nginx, and let's paste. All right, and that's a restart. And we should be able to access our Directus backend via our subdomain. So let me try that. So cms dot the coding amateur.com, and it should not be HTTPS, it should be HTTP, because we have not as yet secured our website. And there you have it. So we are able to access our Directus backend using our subdomain. Now, how cool is that? But we have a problem. You're seeing here that it says not secure. That is not good. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to close this, and we are going to go back to our Directus docs, and we are going to secure our Directus backend. So to do that, we need to install a certificate, and we are going to be using Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt offers free SSL certificates. So we will need to install certbot and the certbot Nginx plugin. We're going to use the certbot to create the SSL certificate. So let's copy this command. Let's go to our VPS and paste. Right, and we'll be installing these packages, certbot and the Nginx certbot plugin. Let's hit enter. Okay, that's great. Let's clear. Having installed that, we need to obtain an SSL certificate by running certbot with the Nginx option and specifying our subdomain. So let's copy the command, and then we will modify it. So I'm going to copy it, right? And I'm going to change this to my subdomain. And I'm going to hit enter. And you could put your email address. So I will enter my email address. So I entered my email address. And it's asking you, please read the terms of service and agree. You must agree in order to register with Acme Server. Do you agree? So you can read the terms of service and agree. Would you be willing, once your first certificate is successfully issued, to share your email address with Electronic Frontier Foundation? I'm going to put no. I don't really want to share my email address. Right? Account registered and requesting a certificate for CMS. All right, and it was successful. So I would have successfully received a certificate, and it is saved. And you would see the directory where the certificates would have been saved. All right. Now, if we go to the config file, you'll notice that the configuration has changed. So if I go back to, if using the up arrow, I can go back to the configuration file setup, which is here. And if I hit enter, you will see that there is additional information. So we have here listening 443 SSL and managed by certbot. So the certbot would have made modifications to the config file in order to allow the security that is needed, or to secure the domain. All right, so let's come out of this, Control X, let's clear, and let's go back to our browser. And let's put in our subdomain or thecodingamateur.com. And now look at that. Isn't that beautiful? We now have connection is secure. So we have secured our subdomain and we have our Directus instance running on our VPS. So congratulations if you have reached this far. We have completed the installation of Directus and we have a Directus instance running on our VPS. So our setup or Directus installation is complete. Now, it does not mean that there aren't any more configurations to be done for our backend. There are some things we still need to do, but as we progress, we will make those changes. So for now, this brings us to the end of this video. I hope that you will successful in creating your backend following the tutorial, and I will see you in the next video.